The hidden factor behind Boeing's 777X delay, you won't believe it. It begins not with thunder, but with a whisper. Quiet murmurs inside boardrooms, hushed conversations in engineering halls, and the kind of corporate promises that sound dazzling on press releases but dangerous behind closed doors. The Boeing 777X, the aircraft that was meant to dominate the skies, was supposed to be the heir to one of the most successful long-haul families in aviation history. It was marketed as the next great leap forward, a symbol of Boeing's unshakable dominance. The folding wingtips, the world's largest engines, the promise of unmatched efficiency. This wasn't just a plane, it was a statement. And yet years after its grand unveiling, the 777X still hasn't carried a single paying passenger. Deliveries have been pushed back, not once, not twice, but multiple times, stretching from 2020 all the way to the middle of the decade. Airlines are frustrated, passengers are confused, rivals are laughing. And behind all the technical explanations, engine problems, certification hurdles, global pandemics, there is a deeper truth, a truth that Boeing doesn't want you to see, the hidden factor, the kind of factor that doesn't just delay an aircraft, but threatens the very identity of a company. To understand why the 777X has become aviation's most delayed dream, we need to go back to Boeing's golden era. For much of the 20th century, Boeing was untouchable. From the revolutionary 707 that brought the jet age to the 747 that made global travel affordable and glamorous, Boeing built planes that didn't just transport passengers, they inspired them. The 777, introduced in the 1990s, quickly earned a reputation as the most reliable twin-engine widebody in history. Airlines called it the backbone of their fleets. Passengers loved its spacious cabin and long-haul comfort. Pilots trusted its resilience. By the early 2000s, Boeing executives faced a new challenge. Airbus was preparing to roll out the A350, an all-new design made of advanced composite materials, boasting fuel efficiency and passenger comfort that threatened to steal Boeing's customers. Boeing had to respond. But instead of creating a completely new jet, the company decided to stretch and modernize its proven 777 platform. The result would be the 777X, bigger, more efficient, and fitted with futuristic technology that would make headlines. On paper, it was brilliant. Orders poured in from the industry's biggest players: Emirates, Qatar Airways, Lufthansa. The plane was promised to enter service in 2020. Boeing marketed it as the aircraft that would carry aviation into the next era. "This is the future of flight," one executive declared at its launch. And for a while, everyone believed it. But behind the curtains, trouble was brewing. The design was ambitious, perhaps too ambitious. Those enormous GE9X engines, larger in diameter than a Boeing 737 fuselage, were expected to deliver record-breaking efficiency. The wings, longer than any commercial airliner in history, required folding tips just to fit into airport gates. These features were bold, daring, and newsworthy, but they were also risky. Engineers began to whisper concerns. Testing teams flagged issues. Timelines looked increasingly unrealistic. Still, Boeing pushed forward. Why? Because the company wasn't just competing with Airbus, it was competing with itself. Wall Street wanted results. Airlines had been promised deliveries. Shareholders demanded speed. Inside Boeing's headquarters, pressure mounted. Delays were not an option. Not publicly, at least. The first prototype took to the skies in 2020, and for a moment, it seemed like Boeing had pulled it off. The wings flexed beautifully, The engines roared like thunder. Aviation enthusiasts around the world watched live streams in awe as the massive jet lifted gracefully into the sky. It looked like a triumph, but what the public didn't see were the technical reports piling up behind the scenes. The GE9X engines suffered from durability issues, compressor blades wearing out far earlier than expected, forcing redesigns. The aircraft's software systems raised concerns with regulators. Test flights revealed problems that required months, sometimes years, to resolve. Slowly, the projected delivery slipped. 2020 became 2021, then 2022, then 2023, and now 2025 or beyond. And then came the moment that changed everything. In 2018 and 2019, two 737 MAX jets crashed, killing 346 people. Investigations revealed flaws in Boeing's design and certification practices. The fallout was devastating. Trust in Boeing collapsed. Regulators, once willing to rely heavily on the company's self-certifications, tightened the leash. Every new system, every software update, every safety feature on the 777X would now face intense scrutiny. Suddenly, Boeing was no longer in control of its own timelines. The FAA was. And the FAA wasn't in a forgiving mood. This alone could explain years of delays. But it still isn't the hidden factor. That lies deeper in the culture that Boeing had nurtured, or rather, abandoned. For decades, Boeing was run by engineers, men and women, who lived and breathed aerodynamics, materials science, and safety protocols. Their pride was in precision. Their mission was to push aviation forward responsibly. But starting in the late 1990s, after Boeing merged with McDonnell Douglas, something changed. Executives with financial backgrounds gained influence. Wall Street metrics, share price, cost-cutting, quarterly returns, took precedence over engineering excellence. The shift was slow, almost invisible at first, but its consequences were massive. By the time the 777X project came around, the culture had already tilted. Deadlines weren't negotiated with engineers. They were imposed by executives. Promises to airlines weren't rooted in technical reality. They were dictated by market competition. Engineers who raised concerns were often sidelined, their warnings diluted before they reached the top. And so, the 777X was born not just as an aircraft, but as a symbol of this new culture, one where promises came first and solutions were supposed to follow. The cracks widened as the pandemic struck in 2020. Demand for large jets collapsed overnight. Airlines cancelled orders or deferred deliveries. Global aviation shifted towards smaller, more versatile aircraft that could fly long distances efficiently without relying on massive hub airports. The A350 and the Boeing 787 suddenly looked like smarter bets. The 777X, once the darling of the skies, looked like a giant in the wrong era. But Boeing couldn't back down. Billions had already been invested. Airlines like Emirates had built their future plans around the 777X. To cancel the program outright would be corporate suicide. So, Boeing doubled down, even as costs mounted and the world's appetite for such a jet diminished. And yet, the most dangerous delays weren't caused by the engines, the pandemic, or even regulators. They were caused by something Boeing couldn't admit out loud: the internal struggle between the culture of engineers and the culture of financiers. One side focused on building the safest, most reliable aircraft possible. The other focused on keeping promises to investors and customers, even if those promises weren't realistic. The tug-of-war stretched timelines, strained resources, and eroded trust. Think about this. The very company that once prided itself on innovation now found itself explaining delay after delay. Emirates' CEO publicly criticized Boeing. Other airlines quietly rebalanced their fleets, placing more orders with Airbus. Confidence in Boeing's ability to deliver on its word wavered, and passengers, they became distant spectators, vaguely aware that Boeing was struggling, but largely unaware of the reasons why. To them, it was just another corporate delay. But in reality, the 777X was becoming a case study in how not to launch a next-generation aircraft. And yet this is only the beginning of the story, because as the years dragged on, new revelations emerged. Whispers of mismanagement, rushed designs, and behind-the-scenes battles that few outside the industry have ever heard. The 777X wasn't just delayed by technical hurdles, it was haunted by a ghost born out of Boeing's own decisions, its own culture, its own obsession with speed over substance. And that ghost would come to define everything that happened next. The ghost of mismanagement did not vanish. It lingered, like a shadow across every wing panel, every software test, every negotiation with regulators. Boeing's engineers were trapped between two worlds, one in which their instincts told them to slow down, to solve the problems properly, and another in which executives demanded progress reports, shareholder updates, and delivery commitments to airlines desperate for clarity. And that brings us to the most haunting question. Was the 777X a mistake? Not technologically. Its design will inspire awe for decades. But strategically, culturally, did Boeing chase a dream that no longer fit reality? Did it sacrifice its engineering soul in pursuit of Wall Street applause? Did it promise too much, too fast, in a world that was changing beneath its wings? This is why the story matters, because the hidden factor isn't about one plane. It's about the trajectory of Boeing itself. If the company cannot reclaim its culture of engineering excellence, then no design, no matter how advanced, will restore its dominance. The 777X is not just delayed. It is a mirror, reflecting the cracks within Boeing's foundation. And as the world waits, the clock ticks. Every month of delay costs money. Every missed delivery chips at trust. Every headline about another slip strengthens Airbus's hand. For passengers, it might all feel distant, abstract. But in aviation, perception is power. Airlines want to be associated with reliability, not excuses. Travelers want to trust the companies that carry them across oceans. So, what happens next? Boeing insists the 777X will arrive. Regulators say they will certify it only when it's ready, no sooner. Airlines keep their fingers crossed, adjusting schedules and strategies in the meantime. And the public watches, wondering how the world's most famous aircraft manufacturer lost its way. One day, the 777X will fly passengers, and when it does, it will be extraordinary. But as you look out those enormous windows at those magnificent wings, remember the story behind them, the hidden factor, the culture that delayed a giant, the choices that nearly cost Boeing its legacy. Because in the skies, technology matters, but trust matters more. And if Boeing cannot rebuild that trust, then no amount of wing flex or engine roar will erase the shadow